The emergency alert blared through the halls of the United Earth Medical Corps headquarters, its urgent tone cutting through the usual calm of the orbital station. Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her holographic medical display, her dark eyes reflecting the red emergency lights that now pulsed through her office. 20 years of emergency medicine hadn't prepared her for what the alert message displayed. URGENT, Class 1 Medical Emergency. Unregistered alien vessel requesting immediate medical assistance. Multiple casualties. All advanced medical systems failed. Vessel location: Saturn's orbit. Sarah's heart raced as she quickly gathered her traditional medical kit, stethoscope, basic diagnostic tools, and the carefully curated selection of universal medicines she'd developed over years of xenobiology research. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was probably the only doctor in the station who still kept primitive tools on hand. The emergency shuttle ride to Saturn's orbit felt endless, even at FTL speeds. Sarah studied the preliminary scans of the alien vessel. The Meridian, as it was called, was a research vessel from an advanced civilization known as the Axiom Collective. Their medical technology was said to be centuries ahead of humanity's, which made their distress call all the more concerning. As her shuttle docked with the massive crystalline structure of the Meridian, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what could have defeated their supposedly superior medical systems. The airlock cycled, filling with a carefully calibrated atmospheric mixture that would allow both species to breathe comfortably. The first thing that struck her was the silence. Despite the emergency, there was no rushing of feet, no shouted orders. Instead, hovering medical drones zipped through the corridors, their soft hums the only sound besides the ship's background resonance. The second thing she noticed was the smell. Something was wrong. Something fundamental that even the ship's advanced air filtration couldn't quite mask. Dr. Chen. A tall, crystalline being approached her, its translucent body refracting the ship's lights in complex patterns. "I am First Healer Ixel. We did not expect the Earth authorities to send someone so." It paused, geometric patterns of distress flowing through its crystalline form. Someone without cybernetic enhancements. Someone who still uses physical tools. Sarah completed the thought, having heard similar reactions before. Sometimes the old ways work best. "Please, show me to your patients." The medical bay was a marvel of technology. Quantum diagnostic arrays hung from the ceiling, their displays showing incomprehensible streams of data. Nanomedical fabricators hummed in the corners, ready to produce any conceivable treatment. And in the center of it all, lying on gravity-suspended medical platforms, were 30 crew members, their crystalline bodies dulled and clouded. "Our systems cannot identify the cause," Ixel explained, gesturing to the quantum arrays. "We've analyzed their atomic structure, their quantum signatures, their temporal resonance patterns. Everything is within normal parameters. Yet they continue to deteriorate." Sarah approached the nearest patient, pulling out her stethoscope. The action drew gasps from the attending alien medical staff. "You're going to use physical contact," one of them asked, their crystalline form flickering with what Sarah interpreted as horror. "With your permission," she said to the patient, who gave a weak flicker of agreement. Sarah pressed the stethoscope against their crystalline surface, closing her eyes to focus on the sound. The vibrations told a story that no quantum scanner could detect. Subtle harmonics that seemed just slightly off. "How long has it been since they consumed anything?" she asked, continuing her physical examination. "Consumed? We don't." Ixel's form rippled with confusion. "Our bodies synthesize energy directly from quantum fields. We haven't needed physical sustenance for millennia." Sarah nodded, pieces clicking into place. She pulled out a simple chemical analysis strip from her kit. Technology that would have been considered ancient by the Axiom Collective standards. "May I?" she asked, touching the strip to a cloudy patch on the patient's surface. The strip changed color immediately. Sarah held it up to the light, confirming her suspicion. "Your quantum field synthesizers are failing," she explained. "Probably have been for weeks, but so gradually that your advanced systems didn't detect it. Your bodies are trying to revert to their ancient methods of energy processing, but you've lost the ability to recognize hunger. The medical staff's geometric patterns shifted rapidly as they processed this information. But our quantum diagnostics, one began. Sometimes the most advanced technology can miss the simplest problems, Sarah said, already pulling supplies from her kit. Your bodies are. As if to emphasize her point, one of the researchers began to stir, their form catching the light with renewed clarity. The medical staff's patterns shifted with relief and accomplishment, emotions that transcended their usual professional distance. You know, Ixel said thoughtfully, when we first encountered humans, we thought we had nothing to learn from your medicine. Now I wonder how much else we've forgotten in our pursuit of advancement. Sarah watched as the healers continued their work, seamlessly blending quantum technology with basic resonance therapy. Maybe that's the real advancement, she suggested, not just moving forward, but remembering to look back and learn from where we've been. The emergency lights finally dimmed, signaling the end of the crisis. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge would be helping the Axiom remember that progress wasn't always about complexity. Sometimes it was about returning to fundamentals and seeing them with new eyes. The Meridian's council chamber was a masterpiece of crystalline architecture, its faceted walls designed to amplify the resonant frequencies of Axiom communication. But today, those same walls seemed to vibrate with tension as Dr. Sarah Chen faced the assembled High Council of Medical Practice. You propose to fundamentally alter our medical protocols. High Counselor Zen's form pulsed with carefully controlled patterns of disapproval, protocols that have served us for millennia. And you base this proposal on intuition. Sarah stood her ground, acutely aware of First Healer Ixel and her other allies among the medical staff hovering anxiously at the chamber's edges. The past week's successes with resonance therapy had sparked a controversy that reached the highest levels of Axiom society. I propose to complement your protocols, not replace them, she corrected. The quantum resonance cascade incident proved that relying solely on advanced technology can be dangerous. Sometimes we need simpler solutions. Simpler solutions. Another counselor's form flickered with what Sarah had learned to recognize as derision. You mean primitive solutions, like your physical examinations and sonic devices. Before Sarah could respond, a new alert frequency cut through the chamber. Emergency signals flashed across the quantum information streams that the Axiom used for ship-wide communication. Ixel's form suddenly crystallized with alarm. Multiple casualties in engineering, they announced. The quantum drive is experiencing fluctuations. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Sarah was already moving, her medical kit in hand. Ixel, with me. The rest of the medical team, prepare the bay for casualties but maintain distance until we assess the situation. You dare to give orders. High Counselor Zen's form flared. This is precisely the kind of breach of protocol. Protocol won't matter if your engine crew dies, Sarah snapped, already halfway to the door. To her relief, Ixel followed without hesitation. The scene in engineering was worse than she'd feared. The quantum drive's usually stable blue glow had taken on a sickly purple tinge, its fields visibly distorting the space around it. 5 engineering crew lay scattered across the chamber, their crystalline forms showing signs of severe quantum disruption. Sarah's human senses, what the Axiom considered primitive, picked up something the quantum scanners missed. A subtle vibration, just at the edge of perception. Her time aboard had taught her to trust these instincts. Don't activate any quantum medical equipment, she ordered as more healers arrived. The drive's fluctuations will interact with them. Ixel, get me the resonators. Working quickly, Sarah began examining the engineers the old-fashioned way, looking, listening, touching. Each crystalline form told a story that no quantum scanner could read. The patterns of disruption, the way the light refracted through their bodies, the subtle variations in their resonant frequencies. Dr. Chen, one of the junior engineers who'd remained conscious, called out, "The drive, We were implementing the new efficiency protocols. Something went wrong with the field harmonics. Sarah's mind raced, connecting dots that the Axiom's linear quantum algorithms might have missed. The drive modifications, the recent resonance cascade in research, the subtle vibrations she'd been feeling. It's all connected, she breathed. The quantum drive isn't malfunctioning. It's trying to prevent a catastrophe. She turned to Ixel. Your quantum efficiency protocols are too perfect. Too perfect. Ixel's form showed confusion. How can perfection be a problem? Because the universe isn't perfect, Sarah explained, working as she talked. Your drive works by manipulating quantum fields, but you've been pushing for ever more precise control. Nature abhors that kind of precision. The drive is building up quantum, so I didn't think it was important enough to report. Sarah nodded, her suspicion confirmed. She turned to the medical staff. Your quantum scanners aren't showing any problems because they're calibrated to your species' standard molecular structure. But look at this. She held up her tablet, showing a series of simple drawings she'd made. The dark bands follow exactly the same pattern as the quantum field emissions from the new stabilizers. Ren's crystalline structure is absorbing and refracting the fields differently than expected. Ixel's form pulsed with realization, an allergic reaction. But that's primitive, Sarah suggested with a smile. Just because your civilization has evolved beyond many biological concerns doesn't mean you've evolved beyond all of them. The new stabilizers are more efficient, yes, but they're resonating at a frequency that's causing localized stress in Ren's crystalline matrix. She reached into her medical kit and pulled out a small device, one of the few pieces of advanced technology she regularly used. This is a personal field harmonizer. We use them on Earth to protect crystalline silicon hybrid species from harmful resonances. With some modification, it should help protect Ren during maintenance work. As she calibrated the device, Sarah could sense the shift in the room's atmosphere. The medical staff had stopped hovering at their prescribed professional distance and moved closer, their forms showing patterns of intense interest. A physical solution to a quantum problem, Ixel mused, watching as Sarah attached the harmonizer to Ren's surface. Our medical development has focused so heavily on quantum manipulation and atomic restructuring that we sometimes forget the value of simple protective measures. The most advanced solution isn't always the best solution, Sarah said, checking the harmonizer's effect with her light. Already, the dark bands were beginning to fade. Sometimes you need to step back and look at the problem from a different angle. Literally, in this case. Ren's form brightened considerably as the discomfort subsided. Thank you, Dr. Chen. Though I admit, I was skeptical when they first brought in a human healer. Our medical technology is supposed to be centuries ahead of Earth's. Technology is just a tool, Sarah replied, packing up her kit. The real art of medicine is knowing which tool to use, whether it's a quantum reconstructor or a simple marker pen. Speaking of which, she pulled out a cleaning cloth and began wiping off her marks from Ren's surface, much to the relief of the more traditionally minded healers. As the medical staff began updating their records with this new information, Sarah noticed Ixel lingering behind. The first healer's form showed complex patterns she hadn't seen before. You know, Dr. Chen, Ixel said thoughtfully, when we first encountered human medicine, we dismissed it as hopelessly primitive. But I'm beginning to understand that what we saw as primitive was actually fundamental. You've preserved knowledge that we nearly lost in our rush to advance. Sarah nodded, thinking of the countless times human medicine had been dismissed by more advanced civilizations, only to prove its worth in unexpected ways. Sometimes the old ways persist because they work, she said simply. The trick is knowing when to use them and when to embrace the new. As she watched Ren leave the medical bay, their form once again gleaming with health, Sarah couldn't help but smile. In the 2 weeks since she'd come aboard, the Meridian's medical bay had gradually transformed. Alongside the quantum arrays and nanofabricators, simple diagnostic tools had begun to appear. The healers were learning to use their eyes and instincts alongside their advanced technology. It was a small change, but an important one. In their quest for advancement, the Axiom had nearly forgotten the foundations upon which their medical knowledge was built. Sometimes it took a primitive perspective to remember what was truly important. The emergency alert pierced through the Meridian's serene atmosphere, its urgent frequency sending ripples through the crystalline walls. Dr. Sarah Chen was already moving before First Healer Ixel's message finished materializing in her quarters. Central Research Chamber. Multiple casualties. Our methods aren't working. Sarah grabbed her medical kit and ran. The Meridian's transport tubes would have been faster, but after a month aboard, she'd learned to trust her instincts. Something about the ship's quantum field generators had been feeling off lately. Subtle vibrations that the Axiom crew couldn't perceive, but her human nervous system detected. She arrived at the research chamber to find chaos, or at least the Axiom equivalent. 3 crystalline researchers lay on hovering medical platforms, their forms clouded and fractured. The medical staff's usually precise movements had become erratic, their formations breaking traditional protocol as they rushed between patients. What happened? Sarah asked, already pulling out her diagnostic tools. Quantum resonance cascade, Ixel explained, their form pulsing with distress patterns. They were testing a new form of faster-than-light communication. The containment field failed. They gestured to the twisted remnants of research equipment in the chamber center. Sarah approached the nearest patient, noting the fracture patterns spreading across their crystalline surface. The Axiom's advanced medical equipment hummed and whirred, quantum reconstructors attempting to repair the damage at an atomic level. But something wasn't right. The fractures were spreading faster than they could be repaired. "Stop the reconstructors," Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the chamber's chaos. The medical staff froze, their forms flickering with shock. "But Dr. Chen," Second Healer Vix protested, "without quantum reconstruction, the fractures will continue spreading either way." Sarah interrupted, pulling out her marker pen. "Look at the pattern. Really look at it." She traced the fracture lines on the nearest patient's surface, revealing a geometric progression that the quantum scanners had missed. "These aren't just physical fractures," she explained. "The resonance cascade has created a quantum echo in their crystalline matrix. Every time your reconstructors try to repair the damage, they're actually reinforcing the echo pattern." She reached into her kit and pulled out a small device that looked absurdly simple compared to the Axiom's technology. "What is that?" Ixel asked, moving closer. "Ultrasonic resonator," Sarah replied, calibrating the device. "We use it on Earth to treat crystalline silicon hybrid species. It's not as advanced as your quantum technology, but sometimes you need to fight fire with fire, or in this case, resonance with resonance." She activated the device, sending carefully tuned sound waves through the patient's crystalline form. The fractures didn't heal, but they stopped spreading. More importantly, the clouding began to clear. "The resonator is creating a counterwave," Sarah explained as she moved to the next patient. "It's disrupting the quantum echo, giving their natural healing processes a chance to work." She looked up at the stunned medical staff. "I need 3 more resonators. Can your fabricators create them?" Ixel hesitated. "Creating primitive technology. It goes against medical protocols." "The Council. We'll have 3 dead researchers if we don't act fast." Sarah cut in. She thrust her resonator at Ixel. "Scan it. Copy it. Now." For a moment, the chamber was silent except for the hum of medical equipment. Then Ixel's form hardened with decision. "Vix, begin fabrication. Priority override on all protocols." The next hour was intense work. As the fabricators produced the resonators, Sarah taught the medical staff how to calibrate them by eye and touch, rather than relying on quantum measurements. It was like teaching master musicians to play simple percussion, but they learned quickly, their natural precision adapting to this new methodology. Gradually, the fractures stabilized. The researchers' forms began to clear, their crystalline matrices slowly repairing themselves now that the quantum echo was neutralized. Sarah stepped back, watching as the Axiom healers continued the treatment, their movements becoming more confident with the primitive tools. Dr. Chen, Ixel approached, their form showing complex patterns of confusion and respect. Our quantum technology is the most advanced in known space. How did you know it wouldn't work? Sarah smiled tiredly. Because sometimes the most advanced solution is part of the problem. Your quantum reconstructors are designed to work with stable crystalline matrices. But in a resonance cascade, there is no stability. You need to restore harmony before you can begin repairs. She gestured to the healers working with the resonators. Look at them. They're not just using the devices. They're learning to feel the resonance patterns, to understand their patients on a fundamental level. Sometimes the old ways force us to pay attention to things our advanced technology lets us ignore. The Council will not be pleased, Ixel noted. Using primitive technology, breaking medical protocols, they still believe that advancement only moves in one direction. Then maybe it's time for the Council to re-examine that belief, Sarah replied. The universe doesn't care about our protocols or our assumptions about advancement. It responds to what works. She patted her battered medical kit. Sometimes that means quantum reconstructors, and sometimes it means ultrasonic resonators. The trick is knowing which tool serves the patient best. Essentially starving. The solution isn't complex quantum manipulation. It's basic nutrition and energy supplementation, delivered in a form your bodies can still process. She held up a vial of shimmering liquid. This is a universal energy substrate we developed for crystalline life forms. It's simple, almost primitive by your standards, but it should help your bodies restore their natural energy processing functions. The next few hours were a flurry of activity as Sarah worked with the alien medical team to administer the treatment. One by one, the patient's crystalline forms began to regain their clarity and luster. The ship's quantum scanners, finally calibrated to look for the right signs, confirmed what Sarah's simple tools had discovered. As the crisis subsided, first healer Ixel approached Sarah again. The patterns flowing through their form were different now. Respect, perhaps even a touch of humility. Dr. Chen, we owe you a debt that cannot be measured. Our advancement nearly became our downfall. We had forgotten that sometimes the simplest solution is the correct one. Sarah packed away her basic medical kit, smiling. That's why Earth still trains doctors to use all available tools, from the most advanced to the most basic. Technology can fail, but the fundamental principles of medicine remain constant. As she prepared to return to her shuttle, Ixel made an unprecedented request. Would you consider staying, Dr. Chen? There is much we could learn from your perspective. Sarah looked around the advanced medical bay, at the quantum arrays and nanofabricators, then down at her simple medical bag. I would be honored, she replied. Though I hope you don't mind if I keep using my primitive tools. The geometric patterns that flowed through Ixel's form could only be described as laughter. Dr. Chen, I believe your primitive tools just saved our entire crew. We would never ask you to change your methods. As Sarah settled into her new role aboard the Meridian, she couldn't help but reflect on the irony. Humanity's greatest contribution to advanced alien medicine wasn't some revolutionary technology. It was remembering not to rely solely on technology at all. 2 weeks into her stay aboard the Meridian, Dr. Sarah Chen found herself facing a new challenge. The ship's medical archives chamber was a vast hexagonal room, its walls lined with quantum data crystals, containing millions of years of medical knowledge. But right now, she was more interested in the living patient floating before her, a junior engineer whose crystalline form had developed concerning dark bands across its surface. The assembled Axiom medical staff hovered nearby, their advanced diagnostic tools humming as they processed endless streams of data. The quantum resonance patterns are within normal parameters, announced second healer Vix, their form flickering with frustration. Atomic stability is optimal. Temporal coherence is perfect. Sarah fought the urge to roll her eyes. After the recent crisis, the Axiom healers had begun to respect her methods, but old habits died hard. They still reached for their quantum scanners before even looking at their patients. "Wren," she addressed the junior engineer directly, pulling out her marker pen, another primitive tool that had earned her curious looks. "Can you show me exactly where the discomfort began?" The young crystalline being raised an appendage to point at their lower section. Sarah made a small mark on their surface with her pen, earning a collective gasp from the medical staff. Dr. Chen. Third healer Zix's form pulsed with alarm. Direct marking of a patient's surface is the fastest way to track the progression of symptoms, Sarah completed, making another mark where the dark bands ended. "Wren, you work in the quantum drive section, correct?" "Yes, doctor." Wren's voice resonated softly. "I was conducting routine maintenance on the field generators when the discomfort began." Sarah nodded, studying the marks she'd made. She pulled out a simple light from her kit, shining it through Wren's crystalline form at various angles. The dark bands refracted the light in an unusual pattern. First healer Ixel, who had become something of an advocate for Sarah's methods since the starvation crisis, moved closer. "What are you looking for, Dr. Chen?" "Patterns," Sarah replied, making notes on her old-fashioned tablet. "Sometimes the simplest observations tell us more than the most advanced scans." "Wren, have you been using the new quantum field stabilizers we installed last week?" The junior engineer's form flickered with what Sarah had learned to recognize as embarrassment. "Yes, they're much more efficient than the old ones, but..." They hesitated. "But what?" "The resonance feels different. I assumed it was just the improved efficiency, but after each maintenance shift, I noticed these dark bands. They fade after a few hours of rest. Instabilities, trying to introduce the natural variations your protocols are eliminating." She grabbed her tablet, quickly sketching a diagram. "Look at the disruption patterns in the crew. They matched the drive's field fluctuations exactly. Their crystalline matrices are resonating in sympathy with the drive's attempt to restore natural quantum variance." Understanding flickered through Ixel's form. "The drive is seeking balance." "Yes, your technology is so advanced that you've forgotten something fundamental. The universe needs imperfection. Quantum fields naturally fluctuate. By trying to eliminate those fluctuations, you're creating a pressure buildup that could tear the ship apart." Sarah turned to the conscious engineer. "We need to deliberately introduce variance into the drive's field harmonics. Not enough to disrupt normal function, but enough to allow natural quantum fluctuations. But that would reduce efficiency by at least 3%. The engineer protested. "Better than a quantum drive explosion," Sarah countered. "Sometimes you have to step back from the theoretical perfect to achieve practical harmony." What followed was an intense collaboration between human intuition and Axiom precision. While Sarah treated the injured crew with resonance therapy, she guided the engineers in modifying their quantum protocols. They introduced carefully calculated imperfections into the drive's field harmonics, allowing for the natural variance that their pursuit of perfection had tried to eliminate. Gradually, the drive's ominous purple glow faded back to its normal blue. The injured crew began to stabilize as their crystalline matrices realigned with the more natural quantum fields. Sarah finally stepped back, exhausted but satisfied. "You understand what this means," Ixel said quietly as they watched the engineering team implement the modified protocols. "Our entire approach to quantum technology may need to be reconsidered." "Not reconsidered," Sarah corrected. "Expanded. Your technology is incredible, but you've been so focused on perfection that you forgot to account for the natural imperfection built into the universe itself." She smiled. "Sometimes you need a primitive perspective to see the fundamental truths." Later, as the medical team treated the last of the engineers, Sarah found herself back in the council chamber. But this time, the atmosphere was different. High Counselor Zhen's form showed patterns she'd never seen before. Uncertainty, perhaps even humility. "Dr. Chen, they began. "It appears we may have been hasty in our dismissal of your methods. The drive incident has demonstrated that there may be value in maintaining connection to more fundamental approaches." Sarah nodded, careful to keep her expression neutral. "As I said before, I'm not proposing to replace your advanced technology. I'm suggesting that we learn to combine the best of both approaches. Sometimes the most advanced solution is knowing when to use simpler tools." The council chamber hummed with thoughtful resonance as the implications sank in. The Axiom had achieved incredible things with their technology, but today had shown them the price of forgetting their roots. Perhaps, Sarah reflected, that was the real gift humanity could offer to their advanced allies. Not just their primitive tools, but their memory of the fundamental principles that all advancement must build upon. 3 months after the quantum drive incident, the Meridian's medical bay had transformed. Quantum reconstructors and nanofabricators still hummed along the crystalline walls, but they were now joined by simpler diagnostic tools. Axiom healers moved with newfound grace between advanced and basic technologies, their forms showing none of their former disdain for primitive methods. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the base center, watching as second healer Vix demonstrated physical examination techniques to a group of junior healers. The sight would have been unthinkable when she first arrived. An Axiom healer voluntarily using touch-based diagnostics. Remarkable, isn't it? First healer Ixel approached, their crystalline form gleaming with what Sarah had come to recognize as pride. The Council's decision to establish the hybrid medical training program is already showing results. Sarah nodded, remembering the lengthy debates that had followed the drive incident. The Axiom had finally accepted that their pursuit of perfect technological solutions had led them dangerously far from fundamental medical principles. The new program aimed to correct that imbalance, combining their advanced technology with more basic diagnostic methods. Administrator Zen is arriving today to evaluate our progress. Ixel continued, their form showing slight anxiety patterns. The success of this program could determine whether similar initiatives are implemented across Axiom space. Before Sarah could respond, the medical bay's quantum information stream pulsed with an urgent alert. A trading vessel had suffered severe damage in an ion storm and was requesting emergency assistance. Sarah grabbed her medical kit, now a unique blend of human and Axiom tools, and headed for the docking bay. Ixel and a team of healers closed behind. The scene aboard the trading vessel challenged everything the hybrid program had taught them. The ship's crystalline crew showed damage patterns unlike anything in their experience, a complex interaction between ion storm exposure and their own attempts at quantum self-repair. Administrator Zen, who had arrived just in time to witness the emergency, watched with keen interest as Sarah and her team went to work. The human doctor moved confidently between technologies, using quantum scanners to identify the broader damage patterns while relying on physical examination to detect subtle variations that the advanced equipment missed. "Here," Sarah called out, identifying a critical resonance pattern in one crew member's crystalline matrix. Their quantum structure is trying to realign, but the storm exposure has created interference patterns. Ixel will need both approaches for this. Working in seamless coordination, Sarah and the Axiom healers combined their methods. Quantum reconstructors provided the broad framework for healing, while carefully calibrated sonic resonators helped guide the natural repair processes. Traditional diagnostic tools identified problems that quantum scans overlooked, while advanced technology provided precision that human senses couldn't match. Hours later, as the last of the trading vessel's crew stabilized, Administrator Zen approached Sarah. Their form showed complex patterns that she'd never seen before in a high-ranking Axiom official. "Dr. Chen," they began, "when we first learned that Earth was sending a human physician to the Meridian, many of us believed it was a diplomatic courtesy at best, a step backward at worst. Their form shifted, displaying patterns of deep respect. We were wrong on both counts." Sarah cleaned her tools, both basic and advanced, as she listened. "The Axiom achieved incredible things with your technology," she said. "You pushed the boundaries of what was possible in medicine. But, but we nearly lost something precious in the process. Zen completed. The fundamental connection between healer and patient. The understanding that comes from direct observation and interaction. The recognition that imperfection and variation are not flaws to be eliminated, but essential parts of life itself. They gestured to the medical bay, where human and axiom technologies work together in harmony. Your presence here has taught us that true advancement doesn't mean abandoning our foundations. It means building upon them, combining the wisdom of the past with the innovations of the present. And that's why. They continued, their form brightening with formal patterns. The Council has approved the expansion of the hybrid medical program. We will be establishing similar initiatives on all major Axiom medical facilities. Moreover, we would like to propose a permanent medical exchange program between our peoples. Sarah's heart leaped at the implications. A chance for human and Axiom healers to learn from each other. Exactly. Your primitive perspective has proven invaluable, Dr. Chen. It helped us remember truths we had forgotten in our rush to advance. Perhaps by working together, we can achieve something greater than either of our approaches could accomplish alone. As if to emphasize the point, one of the treated crew members began to stir. Their crystalline form caught the light with perfect clarity, the seamless integration of quantum and natural healing, creating something that neither approach alone could have achieved. Ixel moved to Sarah's side, their form showing the easy comfort of a trusted colleague. You know, when you first came aboard with your physical tools and basic methods, I thought we were being asked to take a step backward. Now I understand that sometimes you have to look back to move forward properly. Sarah smiled, watching as human and Axiom medical techniques continued to work in harmony around them. Maybe that's the real lesson in all of this. Advancement isn't just about creating new tools. It's about understanding when and how to use all the tools available to us, whether they're quantum reconstructors or simple stethoscopes. The medical bay hummed with the combined resonance of old and new technologies, a symphony of human intuition and Axiom precision. As Sarah looked around at what they had built together, she realized they had created something unprecedented, a bridge between stars, built not on technological superiority, but on the recognition that true wisdom comes from embracing both the advanced and the fundamental, the complex and the simple, the perfect and the imperfect. In the end, humanity's greatest contribution to galactic medicine wasn't their technology or their techniques. It was their reminder that sometimes the most advanced civilization is the one that remembers its roots, and that the path forward often requires us to look back, reaching out to grasp the fundamental truths that unite all healers across the cosmos.